Hey, this is David. Today we're going to figure out how to troubleshoot a Samsung range that has convection fan motor issues. Maybe the fans are noisy when the oven is in convection mode, or only one motor comes on and runs. And what about heat? Does a convection element come on? If your range's fan isn't functioning like it should, it may be caused by problems with the upper or lower convection fan motor, the convection heating element, or even the main control board. Before we dive in, take a second to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you can see all the repair guides you need to fix the appliances in your home. With over 2 million products in stock and the know-how to help you do it yourself, we are AppliancePartsPros.com. Today we'll need a multimeter, a 9mm or 3/8 socket and ratchet, a Phillips head screwdriver, and a Flathead screwdriver. Also, please remember that safety comes first. Make sure to unplug your range or turn off the breaker before working on it. Now, the convection cooking system on this Samsung range is programmed for both fans to come on at the same time, along with the heating element. That way, hot air can circulate around the food. The fans rotate in two different directions. This method helps the food cook faster and more evenly. It's especially great for browning, crisping, and roasting. We're going to check both fans to see what the problem is. If the convection fan motor is rattling or making a racket, then it's pretty obvious that it needs to be replaced. And don't squirt a bunch of WD-40 on it. That's not going to work. If the motor isn't running, we can check to see if it's getting voltage. Here's how to test it. Live voltage is the most accurate and by far the best way to check a motor. Now pull the range out and remove the Phillips head screws from the back panel. Then find the upper fan motor. Since the range needs to be plugged in and powered on for this test, please be very careful to protect yourself from electric shock, which has the potential to cause serious injuries. Don't ever test the voltage if you're uncomfortable using a multimeter. We're going to plug the range back in or turn the breaker back on at this point. Next, set your multimeter to volts AC mode. Then set the range to convection bake on the console. And make sure the oven door is closed. We're going to put one lead on one terminal and the other lead on the other terminal of the upper motor. Don't remove the wires. You should get a reading of 120 volts AC. And just so you know, it can take up to a minute for the board to cycle the fan on, so be patient. If the voltage is there, then the motor is bad and needs to be replaced. If you don't get 120 volts there, then the control board isn't sending voltage to the motor. If the wiring looks good, you'll need to replace the control board. If you're not comfortable with testing live voltage, we have another way for you to test. You can ohm out the motor using your multimeter. The range needs to be unplugged or the breaker turned off. Then we can remove the wire connector. Now set your meter to resistance mode and use the leads to check from one terminal to the other. You should get a reading of about 20 to 30 ohms. If the reading is out of this range, then you'll need to replace the motor. So that was the upper convection fan motor. Now we're going to move on to the lower one. Again, if the motor is rattling or making a racket, then it's pretty obvious that it needs to be replaced. Don't squirt a bunch of WD-40 on it, since that's not going to help at all. If the motor isn't running, we can check to see if it's getting voltage. Find the lower fan motor. We're going to plug the range back in or turn the breaker back on at this point. Next, set your multimeter to volts AC. Then set the range to convection bake on the console and make sure the oven door is closed. We're going to put one lead on one terminal and the other lead on the other terminal of the lower motor. Don't remove the wires. You should get a reading of 120 volts AC. If the voltage is there, then the motor is bad and needs to be replaced. If you don't get 120 volts there, then the control board isn't sending voltage to the motor. If the wiring looks good, you'll need to replace the control board. If you're not comfortable with testing live voltage, we have another way for you to test. You can ohm out the motor using your multimeter. The range needs to be unplugged or the breaker turned off. Then we can remove the wire connector. Now set your meter to resistance mode and use the leads to check from one terminal to the other. You should get a reading of about 20 to 30 ohms. If the reading is out of this range, then you'll need to replace the motor. Next up is the convection heating element. To check it, we're going to be looking for live voltage. We need to find the element terminals, which will be by the lower convection fan. Leave these terminals connected, then turn the power back on. We need to set the range to convection bake on the console, and both fans should start running once the door is closed. Now use your multimeter set to volts AC to check the two terminals. You should see 240 volts AC at this point. If you see the right amount of voltage, then the element is defective and will need to be replaced. But if the voltage isn't correct, there may be a broken or burned wire. If the wiring is also good, then the board has failed. Now, let's check the main control board. We're testing this to find out whether the fan motors and the convection heating elements are getting correct voltage from the control board. Let's start with the upper fan motor. We need to set the range to convection bake on the console. We're going to be checking live voltages, so here's your reminder to be very careful. You'll need to find the CN706 terminal, which is pin 1 and a brown wire. Then put the other lead on the white neutral wire at the terminal block or the CN101 pin 3 terminal. They're both neutral connections. You should get a reading of 120 volts here. If the voltage isn't there, then there's either a broken or burned wire or the board is defective. To check the lower fan motor, we need to make sure it's set to convection bake. It's going to be checked the same way, except we'll be checking the board at the CN707 terminal, which is pin 3, a brown wire. When we check from that terminal to the white wire at the terminal or at the CN101 pin 3 terminal, it should read 120 volts AC. If the voltage isn't there and the wires are not burned or broken, you'll need to replace the board. And finally, to check the convection heating element to see if the board is sending the correct amount of voltage, the range needs to be in convection mode. We're going to check at the board from terminal T501 to terminal T507, and you should get a reading of 240 volts AC. If the voltage isn't correct and the wires aren't burned or broken, then you'll need to replace the board. If the voltage is correct, you'll need to replace the element. After we made all these checks on this range, we found out that the lower convection fan motor was defective. Let me show you how to replace it in case you have the same problem. To change out the lower convection fan motor, we need to make sure the range is unplugged or the breaker is turned off. Remove the oven door by opening the door to a flat position and pulling out the door catch clips like so. Lift up and out to remove the door. Remove the oven racks. This will help you get to the back of the oven a lot easier. We need to remove the 2 screws that hold the fan cover. Then take the 9mm socket and ratchet and hold the fan blade to keep it from turning. Turn the nut to the right and remove the fan blade. Be careful not to bend the blades as you do this. Now go to the back of the range, find the lower motor, then remove the wire connector and the 3 screws holding it in. You should now be able to pull the motor out. Here's the old motor and here's the new one. If you've already got one, great. If not, you can pick one up at appliancepartspros.com. Now we're going to mount the new motor and attach it with 3 screws. Then attach the wire connector and install the rear panel. Once that's done, go to the front of the oven and mount the fan blade and nut. The nut will tighten to the left. Then turn the fan by hand to make sure the blades aren't bent or rubbing the oven liner. After that, we can install the fan cover and put the racks back in and install the door. Make sure to push the hinge clips back up into the cabinet. Then open and close the door to check that it's opening and closing correctly. Don't forget to plug the range back in or flip the circuit breaker back on. Once you've found the issue with your Samsung range, whether it's the convection fan motor or another part, just grab your model number and visit appliancepartspros.com to order the replacement. Most orders arrive in just a couple of days, so you can get back to cooking in no time. After your new parts arrive, you could come back here to get help with your installation. And we'd love to hear from you. Let us know how the repair process went by leaving a comment below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.